everyone, and welcome to our first session of the day for our virtual conference, Together We Retail. We have a robust itinerary for the day. We have 5 sessions, so make sure you catch them all. But first, we have our Intro to Retail Resources. I'm Lenise Willis, Editor-in-Chief of Gifts and Decorative Accessories, and your host for today. So before we get into our topic, first, I would love to thank our headline sponsor for our whole conference, One Coast. And they actually have a message that they're going to share first on behalf of Heart on Main Street, which we'll find out a little bit more about later. Welcome to our first session, which I think is so appropriate that we're going to kick off today just talking about all the resources that are out there. And I'm sure there's so many that, you guys might not even know about yet. So we've got a lot of great minds on our panel today that are going to help spread the word about some great resources that could help you grow your business and stay up to date. So I'm just going to go in a little circle that I have in front of me on my camera view. So we have Beth Rich, and she is a retailer and owner of Mix It Up Home and Mix It Up Gift. And then we have Patrick Kaiser, Executive Director of Heart on Main Street, which is a relatively new nonprofit in our industry. We're going to get to talk about that a little more later. We have Allison Anderson, another retailer that I'm sure many of you have seen before. She's a big voice in our industry, and she's the owner of A. Dodson's. We have Ashley Alderson of the Boutique Hub, CEO of the Boutique Hub, which has really exploded over the last few years. So I'm so excited to pick your brain about that. And of course, Carol Schroeder, another seasoned retailer and owner of Orange Tree Imports and author of Specialty Shop Retailing. She also writes lots of columns and a weekly blog for GDA. So we're very appreciative of your participation, Carol. So I want to kick off first because we have 2 great organizations here that are resources in themselves. So Patrick, I want to start with you. I know I did it reverse than I did in rehearsal. Sorry, Ashley. But Patrick, we'll start with you and tell us a little bit about Heart on Main Street and how you're approaching it from 2 angles. So you guys have a great mentorship and educational resources. So let's talk about that first.
Yeah, absolutely. And thanks for the intro video. Hopefully that explained a little bit about our organization, but we are a nonprofit organization really wanting to help out independent retailers and make sure that they are successful, sustainable within their communities, make sure that they can continue to serve their communities. And a big aspect of that and kind of how we can reach a lot of people is through education. So that being a large aspect of what we do is provide educational webinars for retailers, a wide variety of different topics. We try and bring in experts. I am not an expert in many things, but I know people that are. And so we talk to really people that are fantastic, leading authorities in their field. We just had one yesterday about visual merchandising, which was really a fantastic topic and really well attended, really great information there. But social media strategies. Beth did one with us earlier in the year about event planning and holding events within your store. So really these things that are necessary and needed for retailers to really learn about. We try to also do them at pertinent times throughout the year. Earlier in the year, as you're planning out your year, we were talking about event planning. We're trying, towards the end of the year, we'll talk about financial planning going into next year, things that kind of make sense at that time, really catered to the independent retail community and make sure that they have information that they can immediately incorporate back into their business. And then I know that you had asked about the mentorship program and something that we're putting together. But the idea that independent retail is tough. Owning your store is tough. Getting it off the ground is really difficult, and especially for those first couple years. So creating this program where we have newer retailers that are connected with more experienced retailers, so that they have someone that they can go to and ask questions, but also partnering that with a guided curriculum. So going through, you have information, you have some courses, we'll do some webinars and some information specifically for that group that'll be within our mentor team. And then so you get kind of like this textbook knowledge, as well as your mentor retailer getting that real world, all right, the textbook says this, but what I've had a lot of experience with is doing this. And kind of partnering those together and hoping to get retailers off on the right foot, and that they can hopefully avoid making some mistakes that every retailer makes at the beginning and getting themselves in a hole before they've even gotten started, and having to dig themselves out of that. So
absolutely. And then, so I know if you go to heartonmainstreet.org, they can find a lot of that information as well, to register for webinars or see sort of the more about the mentorship program. And then something else they'll find is your information about your grants, your grants. I know you guys have a financial aid aspect as well. So can you tell us a little bit about, kind of what you guys are doing for disaster relief, because you've been in the news lately about that too. And then also how retailers can apply for a grant, if they need to, a little bit more about that side of it.
Yeah, absolutely. So, disaster relief is something that we started off with working with a retailer in Fort Myers Beach after Hurricane Ian last year. And it was just something that recognized this is so needed and so necessary, that businesses, there are great organizations that work with the citizens of a community, that work with the, providing supplies, providing support, providing houses. But when it comes to the businesses of those areas, a lot of times they're really left to fend for themselves. And insurance covers some, but that is of the understanding that maybe that they are insured, which sometimes businesses are not, or they're not fully insured, or that they're not insured for that type of disaster, a flood or something that's, there's maybe not, they don't have that type of insurance. So we're looking at, and we have been providing financial donations to retailers that have been impacted by natural disasters. And so we've been working in Fort Myers Beach area. We've helped out a couple retailers there. Rolling Fork, Mississippi, which was hit by tornadoes earlier this year. We've helped out a couple businesses in that area. And right now we're having a fundraiser for the really devastating fires that are going on through Hawaii, and then especially the Lahaina area. And that was a vibrant, independent Main Street community that has been really devastated by the fires. And so it'll be some time before we're kind of seeing those communities really get back up and going, but wanting to provide financial assistance for them. And then also in the last couple of weeks, we launched what we're calling our Jumpstart program. Getting the business up and going is certainly step one, but then step two is getting products back into the store. And that is another financial investment. And again, insurance might cover, but there's just different things going on with insurance. So we've partnered with 9 different vendors and really kind of looking to grow that and expand those efforts, that they've committed to providing free product for retailers when they're ready to open up their doors, when they're ready to get back up and going. It's basically kind of like this coupon code that they can redeem with those vendors and be able to get free product back in their store, so they can restock their shelves. They can jumpstart back into business and not put the gigantic financial burden of buying everything again, and really allow themselves to get back up in business and be able to work with their community. So that's from the disaster relief standpoint, is just something that is really kind of hit my heart, and that we really need to be able to help these independent businesses.
Absolutely.
And then the grant process, which is another thing that we're wanting to really help retailers invest back in their business. So we will be having an application process for grants, that if you're wanting to invest back in your business, invest in financial management, invest in inventory management, invest in someone to help do social media for you, to kind of expand your business and be able to reach others. I'll have an application process that retailers can go through, and we'll be able to provide some money for retailers to do those things, so they can expand their business and they can really be a better presence within their community.
Awesome. And I put the link in the chat just so people can explore it later. But I just think it's really important to have you on today because, I know you guys launched late 2022. You really announced it at Dallas Market in January, as far as when I found out about it and kind of had your launch party. So I know it's relatively new, but I think it was so needed in the industry. So we're really happy to help spread the word. And we want to make sure that retailers even know that this grant program or financial assistance even exists, so that they can take advantage of it. So we're happy to spread the word about it too, and commend you guys for what you're doing. Yeah, of course. So Ashley, I told Ashley I was going to start with her and then just switched it on up as soon as totally fine. So thanks for rolling with me, Ashley. But I would love for you to tell us a little bit more about the Boutique Hub and kind of how it helps to foster a community of retailers, because I think sharing within our industry is so incredibly important, and making sure that an independent retailer doesn't feel like they're in it alone, like that they have other sort of colleagues that are there with them. So tell us about how the Boutique Hub helps to create that community and foster the sharing of ideas.
Absolutely. Well, first of all, thanks again for having me. And Patrick, I love what you have going on. I think that was so needed in the industry. So I'm so glad that you're here sharing that as well. And we love sharing that at the Boutique Hub also. So a little bit about the Boutique Hub. We've been in business. This is our 10th anniversary. And really the idea around the Boutique Hub first started with this idea of community over competition. And anymore, I think there's a lot of people that use that motto, but I know when we first started, it was a bit foreign in our industry. It was still a little siloed, a little competitive. You didn't want your neighbor across the street to know what was going on in your store. But the idea came for me long before the Boutique Hub started. I used to work in economic development. And at the time, there was 2 stores in my small town in North Dakota, and one of them was going out of business. And one day, the other store across the street came in and they said, Ashley, you've got to help us figure out how to get another store in that space. And I stopped and I was like, wait, why? Like, now all the business is yours. That was your competitor. This should be great. And they said, no, you don't understand. Wherever 2 or more stores come together, we become a shopping destination. We need each other. And I was like, okay, light bulb moment. And so that's really where community over competition came from. So the idea behind the Boutique Hub today is really rooted in that in all aspects of business. So there's 3 big things that we try to accomplish for retailers around the world. The first and foremost is community. So we serve about 65,000 stores in many different aspects, but we try to get stores together to network with one another. We try to pair like stores together, whether you're a children's store, a brick and mortar store, home and gift store, your Canadian store. We try to get those like stores and then also like business sizes together. So you can really network with someone who gets it just like you do. And you never have to do business alone, because we all know it's hard. It's really hard. So community is really the core. We also try to get our community together in person. We host a big event called the Boutique Summit. Again, this is boutiques, but also home and gift. It doesn't really matter what you sell. You're an independent retailer. And so that's coming up again in June 9th and 10th next year in Dallas. And it's always right before market. So hopefully everyone who comes to the summit, usually between 500 and 1,000 stores attend that event and then come to market afterwards as well. So community is the core of what we do, but 2 other things that are really our focus and our foundation. The second is education. So we go live, we coach, we provide business education every single week, usually twice a week. There is a speaker on a different topic, and this is technology topics, developing your team, operations. We're really big on just like the back end of website, e-commerce, Facebook ads, all of those pieces as well. And then education also at the Boutique Summit, some other courses and events that we host, day planners that we build for retailers and so on. And then the third core of what we do is wholesale. So we work with about 1,000 brands at the Boutique Hub to also facilitate connection between retailers and brands and provide brand education, because our wholesale friends, there's lots of mom and pop wholesale brands that also need that type of support and industry education. So we leverage that. And then also on our platform called Hubventory, our very own wholesale marketplace that does not price gouge brands. It's very fair pricing, and also has so many tools that retailers are asking for when they're buying wholesale today, with an omni-channel experience between trade shows and online buying married together.
I love it. Well, I'm going to switch gears and pick some of the brains of our retailers that are rich in hands-on experience as well. So Carol, you have been in our industry for quite some time and sharing your ideas with us through GDA too. So of course we had to have you on here today. But I just I'm curious about what resources, or what are your top resources that you have seen be invaluable to you, continuing your business and continuing to grow. Like, what tips would you give either seasoned or new retailers about the top resources that have been beneficial to you as a store owner?
Well, I'm a big fan of the sales rep industry, our service, and that's often tied to a sales agency such as One Coast or some of the other big agencies. Sometimes they're independent sales reps, and we're really seeing a challenge to that post-COVID, and also with so many B2B sites like Fair. So I really hope that we can, whenever possible, place orders through reps so that we have them calling on us. They tend to know our territory, they know our store, they know their lines, and they really provide a service. And what I have heard anecdotally from my reps is that some buyers don't understand how the system works. So they'll spend 2 hours with a rep and then place the order through Fair. And it is a commission-based setup. And if you don't place your order through the rep, most companies will not give them credit. There are some companies that are good about doing that. So that's, I would say, number one. And I've seen a huge change there. Some of my reps are in their 80s and they're still out there, but I'm not seeing reps in their 30s and 20s. So we need to encourage younger people to come into that field. It can be very rewarding. You're your own boss. You get to travel around. You get to shop all day or visit some really cool stores. I also love going to trade shows. In between, Gift and Deck and other trade magazines are invaluable resources, in part just for the ads. I mean, flipping through them, we all know from advertising our own stores that it takes more than one hit to make an impression. So if I see a line in an ad in Gifts and Deck and then a sales rep mentions it to me, or I then see it at a trade show, I'm more likely to order it because of those multiple impressions. I'm a big fan of networking also. I started our neighborhood business association about 45 years ago, and we're about to have our 45th Monroe Street Festival, which is a big celebration of the locally owned businesses that are on our street. I really like what Ashley said about cooperation instead of competition, and that's been very rewarding, not only to help bring more people to our area, but to mentor the locally owned businesses that are our business neighbors. I also wanted to give a shout out to Patrick's program. I love the idea that when businesses are recovering, they get a credit with a company rather than a company saying, oh, well, you're reopening, here's some stuff. You know, it maintains their integrity as a buyer and as their branding as a store. And I think that branding is something that is so important for an independent retailer, because you have to have an identity, and ideally a personal identity, so that people realize that they are buying from a person or a mom and pop or whatever. And the last thing I think I'd mention is the buy local movement. That started, of course, quite a while ago. Small Business Saturday is part of it. We have a large organization here called Dane Buy Local, but there are some national and many local organizations. But just educating the public that when you buy from Amazon, you are not supporting your community. And again, people don't necessarily know that. You know, they think, especially if a store has an Amazon storefront, that it is a small locally owned business, but it isn't necessarily. So the importance of supporting local business is a really great message. And the buy local organizations that help us get that out are doing us a big service.
I love it. And I'm really glad that you mentioned about like neighborhood organizations that help you to network and collaborate and continue to grow. And Beth, I wanted to loop you into this topic too, because you're like the queen of store events, first of all. She is a former Retailer Excellence Awards winner for that very reason. You were always doing something and really getting the community involved. So I wanted to pick your brain too about what resources have helped you, what organizations should like people be thinking about. I need to make sure I know this person in my neighborhood that could help me grow or pull off an amazing event. I mean, what resources are you tapping into?
Thank you. So as I sit here, I am 5 years into retail. So Carol and Allison, I mean, hats off to you. In my defense, I had 35 years of sales and marketing experience, but had never been in retail. And as I came into the industry, I would just echo what you said, Carol, that for me, when I started and I didn't know anything, I was at market, and you have that wall of magazines and industry publications, and I just kind of grabbed one of everything all the way along the way, thinking I've just got to fill my head with what this industry has to offer. And Gift and Decorative Accessories magazine, there are plenty of publications I read, and I'm trying to get past the advertisements to get to the article. And it's almost the opposite with Gift and Deck, because I'm looking at the ads to say, okay, it's exactly what Carol just said. It's like, what's up and coming? What I need to be paying attention to? What do I need to be buying and having in my store? And so we've just opened a new home store. So Hat has become my second favorite publication. And so just always trying to kind of fill my head and keep current. I do think that going to market, I told new retailers, I said, I know it's expensive. I said, but, partner with somebody in your community that's going, share a room, get a card that earns miles, and, have your plane ticket paid for, but figure out a way to get to a market. And I recommend Dallas to a lot of people, just because it's not quite as overwhelming. And so I feel like it's a great place to get started and kind of get your feet wet. When it comes to who I think, I love Carol's comment about the neighborhood community. For us, I live in a resort town. I live in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho. And so we are very much a resort community. And I would recommend to any retailer, touch base with your local chamber of commerce. Not every town has a vibrant one, and necessarily worth joining is not just a caveat, but the reality of it is they're there to promote you, to promote your town, to promote your city. And so it's a great way to network. It's a great way to get involved. Our Chamber of Commerce is very, very vibrant. And then I am at my business in downtown Coeur d'Alene, and I call it the trifecta, because I have a Chamber of Commerce. We have a downtown association that puts on an event every single month, all year long, in downtown Coeur d'Alene, from a mac and cheese festival in January, believe it or not, to a classic car show in the summer, wine extravaganza, Oktoberfest. And so we hosted 74 events at Mix It Up in 2022. That's a lot of events. And, but 12 of those were once a month, the downtown association had an event. So I look at businesses that aren't involved, and I think you're just missing the opportunity to have thousands of people come in and out of your store. Maybe they don't buy something the day of the event, but you just can't buy that kind of a touch point. And then we have an Arts and Culture Alliance, and they host a second Friday art walk. Now, Mix It Up Gift is not an art gallery. However, I pay to be included in the map as a gallery. And what we started doing, we were featuring local artists for a while, and we did a paradigm shift this year, and we are featuring the artistic elements of our national brands. So, for example, this past month, we had Dan and Lauren DeLon, who are the owners of Mixture Candles in Merriman, Kansas, and they poured a scent exclusively for us called Heavenly Coeur d'Alene. They came to town, they met all of our associates. Matt Ellison from Gurgle Pot was here in June, standing on the street pouring out of Gurgle Pot. We have Hong and Rafe Wolf from Pulling Card coming in September. Now, it's easy for me to get somebody to come to a resort town, because I come here on vacation and come and play with us. But that's 12 events, and now it's not without work, but that's 12 events right off the bat, where you are engaging with your customers and getting them into your store and kind of setting that tone.
Absolutely. I love that. And that's such a good point. Like, a lot of times we think of resources, it's like, obviously continuing education, obviously any sort of financial help, but yeah, like events is such a huge part of what independent retailers do. And so having these organizations or even the vendors themselves that can help you have a robust list of store events is such an excellent resource to keep in mind. And so speaking of, I want to pick Allison's brain too, because you are a huge advocate for how manufacturers and retailers can work better together. And I know Carol, brought this up as well about what a great resource sales reps are. So I was hoping you could chat with us about that too. We do have a session on it specifically about that topic at the as our last session of the day at 4 p.m. Eastern, if you guys want to watch that as well, about how manufacturers can help retailers as well as a resource. But so Allison, how can manufacturers or sales reps be a resource for retailers? Like, what is your experience with that? Because people might not even know that they could get help that they don't know about.
Yeah. Well, first of all, I want to say thank you, because I want to just, along with everyone else on the panel, you've done such a great job at Gift and Deck, and just where you've brought it about in your social media right now. You're killing it. So thank you for continuing that.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
And really moving what is a paper magazine into what, the online experience. You're doing such a great job. But, retailing is a passion of mine. So about maybe 12 years ago, I reached out to my top vendors and asked to kind of have one-on-one meetings with their, whether it was their president or vice president. I kind of went through my sales reps and said, can we just all sit and talk? And I just asked for help. I mean, it was really that simple. I just said, I want to grow my business. How can you help me? Or what advice can you give me? I think is actually, Fred at Mud Pie was the first person that I kind of really reached out to. And I said, and he sat with myself, Marsha, and my sales rep, and said, here are some ways we can help you, and these are some things that we can help you put in place. At the time, he challenged me to go hire a data analyst so I could understand my business different than just the way I saw it. And so I'm a big numbers girl, and I really started to look at it through a whole different set of eyes, thanks to him. And I always just every chance I can thank him. But then I just started going to more vendors and saying, what else do you think I need to do to grow my business? How can I grow your business within my business? What are some things I can do? And I just kept asking the question, and it really was that simple. And what I've learned over the years is that as retailers, we really don't know our power. And I say that all the time to retailers. And you may know your numbers, but you don't know how to use that in a powerful way with your sales rep and ask for other things, to ask for a shipping discount when it's not even there. I mean, did I place an order that is big? Is it the biggest one ever placed with this company? Then that you have more power, and we just don't ask enough as retailers. The other thing is we don't communicate enough back to our sales reps and back to our wholesalers. If we have a difficult year, we tend to kind of hide and say, oh, I don't want anybody to know it was really tough for me. But what we really need to do is share and say, this part of your line really did not work for me, and here's the reasons why, and talk through it. I've asked for discounts when it hasn't really worked, and they really sold it to me and said, this is going to be the number one seller in your store. So, I take a lot of notes at market and say, this is what this person said. They believed in it this way. And I go back when things don't work well. Some of it's my fault and I take risks, but others, it's a partnership. So these guys want to help you. Just takes using your voice.
Absolutely. Can you share any other resources that you've used or even created? I know that you really help to foster the sharing of ideas as well, but how do you stay connected with other retailers, and why is that so important? Let's go start there.
Yeah. Well, obviously during COVID, we were all kind of, in a hole. So I started a Rocking Retailers Facebook group that's kind of an open, anybody can join it. And we just really have the open discussion of how things are. Sometimes it's hard because people don't want to share their numbers. So I tend to just really be very open about my business, because I feel like with my seasoned experience, if I'm willing to share, people will follow. But Ashley really hit it the nail on the head when she said, view each other as competition. I've never done that. I've always wanted to help anyone. I take text all the time from retailers all over the country answering questions. But, we saw a huge shift to Shopify during that movement or during COVID, where a lot of retailers that weren't online or were still writing paper tickets really moved to an online presence, and Shopify really took the lead on that. So that made it a little easier for me to go back to the wholesalers and say, hey, we need our information quickly. We need to be able to download it the exact second we write that order. We need to be able to have all our information from description to country that it's made, to weights, to box sizes, to everything. So I think that part of the industry is slowly moving. I've seen, Ivy Stone doing it to where we can download it. Obviously, Fair has had it in place. Currently, I'm working on getting our sales information pushing back to wholesalers, because I feel like if we are going to have the information, we should be willing to give it back. I think that that's going to help sales reps do their jobs better, to help us see the holes in our store, not just to see it on our shelves. And, it's kind of my passion project right now to kind of get that up and running. But I think anytime we have more information, the better. I know with some of these small wholesalers kind of popping up and the temporaries, it's a lot harder for them. They're writing on paper still. But I think with as fast as the times are moving, in no time, they'll be on board as well.
I love it. And I did forget to mention, so we can accept questions. So for anyone watching, if you have a question in general or a question for any particular panelist, you can enter it in that Q&A function. I'll be monitoring it off to the little sides. You've seen my eyes dart off. I'm reading questions. So if you have any questions, please, pop them in. And as we have time, we will answer them, just so you guys know. And then I kind of want to open this up to the rest of the panel now. And are there any resources that we've missed out as far as, where do you go for inspiration or advice or to learn? If we can just kind of share any other resources we haven't talked about. First, for example, I watch Whiz Bang Retail Trainings videos all the time. They are always so on point. I am constantly watching Patrick's webinars to see what extra information there is. You always have amazing guests. Where do you all go for continued education and for inspiration? Beth, we'll start with you. I'm just going around the little screen.
Well, I am honored to sit on the board of directors of Heart on Main Street with Patrick. And one of the other board members is Crystal. How do you pronounce Crystal's last name?
Vilkaitis.
Vilkaitis. And she owns Crystal Media.
It rhymed with bronchitis, so you can remember
bronchitis. She owns Crystal Media, and she has a weekly. It's called Rooted in Retail, and she's in the social media end of retail, and it's one of those. I always say the reason why you do Facebook and Instagram is it's free. Unless you're buying ads, but the reality of it is you're trying to share your story and you need to be doing it, but you're doing all these other things. And, I'll just tell just a quick little vignette. I opened a second store in April. And so we hired a marketing company in January to kind of take on some of that for us and do posting and handle, creating reels and all that other stuff. And we got about 6 months into it, and we realized that as awesome as it was, our merchandise and our story changes so it's so dynamic that we all of a sudden we would see a post for something that now we only had 2 left in the store, because they photographed 2 weeks ago, and all of a sudden we see a post and I'm like, oh my gosh, like take that down because I only have 2 of those. If I sold both of them, I'd be making $6.29. So let's show something else. And what we realized, it was a good process. We got some great branding out of it, but what we realized is we needed to be doing it in-house. We needed when I come out of the back door and I see a mom on her knees with a little girl, and they are having a tea party with one of my tea sets in the kids section, I need that video and I need to post that video. And so I have found Crystal's, she has an online class, but she also has kind of her rooted in retail. And I find that as I am now the social media marketing director at Mix It Up. That job does not pay very well. But as I take on that job, that's one of the big holes that I find where I'm looking for education.
Absolutely. Patrick, can you share some of the resources that you have found, just some of the guests even on your webinars that you've had to help keep other retailers informed?
Yeah. And so I mean, we've had Crystal Volkaitis was on about talking about social media, Beth, as well as Mary Liz Curtin, who is another retailer in Clawson, Michigan, event planning, but also talking about how to prepare to attend a trade show. Kind of what are your plans? How do you schedule that out? Worked with Bob Negan of Whizbang Retail Training about creating job postings and interviewing for retail positions and how to construct that to really find your best candidate. We worked with a group yesterday, talked about visual merchandising, a group out of Milwaukee called Retail Works Inc. We're going to be working with another group in Chicago based about window displays and designs called Windows Matter. So a lot of those resources we have found either through some other kind of partner organizations having some partner services. So Crystal has some partner companies. There's another company that does inventory management and financial planning called Management One. They have a group of different services. I know Ashley's Boutique Hub has services as well, or different companies that provide resources to independent retailers, and also Main Street organizations. So there is out there a whole vast network of, I think it's a couple thousand communities that are part of what is Main Street USA, and all different chapters by state and different chapters by city as well. And having a lot of resources there and reaching out to those and seeing what resources they have that they use, and really trying to find kind of what are the good things that are working for their communities. And kind of to the point that was being made earlier about downtown associations and Chamber of Commerce's and how, I mean, crucial they are to really bringing business into communities and having events and having festivals and having those things. You can tell a community that does and focuses on those versus one that does not. And so if you see a community that is thriving, that has good downtown associations, that is part of a Main Street organization, something like that, they probably have some resources there to be able to learn from and kind of pick from.
I love it. And then Ashley, how do you stay inspired? How do you keep your ear to the ground to have new ideas? Everything is always changing all the time.
It is. I feel like my number one goal every day is just to be able to see the forest through the trees. And where is this industry going? What's everyone saying, like boots on the ground, and then accumulate all of that information and bring it back to people. So for us, we have a big podcast called Boutique Chat. We've been doing the podcast for a few years now. And every week we talk to a different retailer, or many of the resources Patrick also mentioned, Management One and Josh Orr with Streamline, and so many different resources. So every week we just try to spin like what's working, what's not, where are we going to go next? And then for me also, just coming to trade shows, I think is so inspiring. You know, everyone's bringing their most creative ideas to the floor with displays, and there's always good news to catch up on every time I'm at a trade show.
I love it. And then Carol, where do you get your inspiration from? I mean, first of all, you write a weekly blog as well. So if you haven't checked out her specialty retailing blog, we also reprint it with your permission at giftsanddeck.com as well. And how many have you written? I don't know how you get so many topics all the time, but
that's actually an inside secret. I've written over 750 of them, and it's at specialtyshopretelling.com. If anybody, you can look at the archive by title or topic. I wanted to mention that when I'm looking for a topic, because believe me, after 750 plus 125 columns for Gifts and Deck, it sometimes gets a little tricky to know what to write about. But I follow several groups on Facebook, such as the Whiz Bang group, their members write in all the time about things that are bothering them or they have questions about. So that's sort of a resource that I use when I'm looking for a topic to write about. I wanted to mention the Small Business Development Center. That's an outgrowth of the small business, SBA through the government, and it's affiliated in most cases with local universities. So the Small Business Development Center here at the University of Wisconsin offers a whole lot of seminars, both in person and virtual, one-on-one training, lots of help. And we also work at the university with their school of business. We have interns who help our business association. I have to say that sometimes it's more work than output, but it's fun to have that fresh set of eyes. You get 18 to 22-year-olds, or maybe business students who are a little bit older in the grad school. So that's another resource. The SBDC at the University of Wisconsin has put together a national online course about going into business, and they've had, 10,000 people go through it. It's a 8-week course or whatever, and the outcome is that you are ready to either go into business or decide not to. And they're working on a new one that's going to launch soon about writing a business plan, and there'll be a workbook for coming up with budgeting, because they said that that's a huge problem when people go to a bank looking for funding, that they have trouble doing the projections. So be sure to check out your local SBDC if you haven't looked into that. I was asking them why I didn't talk to them when I first got my SBA loan when I went into business, but it turns out that I've been in business longer than the SBDC has been in business. There's also a program called SCORE, which is the Society of Retired Executives. So you might be matched with somebody who has been in retail and is volunteering their time. That's a much smaller program, but you could check in your area to see if there is a SCORE program. And I also encourage you to reach out one-to-one. I have mentored many retailers over the years, and I find that it's rewarding for me. Don't go to somebody who says that they want to open the same type of store as yours next door to you. But, if you reach out to a retailer in another city, and for sure, when you're traveling, make time to go to stores. We all need to refresh our batteries by visiting stores in other cities, especially if you're there for a trade show, for example, or in other countries. And I find inspiration seeing what other people do well.
I love it. Yeah, I love seeing that too. And we've had a couple of round tables, and I'll have lots of different retailers from all across the country. And then afterward, I found out one of them was doing this whole pop-up theme every month. And then another retailer was like, I want to try that. And they were collaborating. And the next year, the other retailer was talking about her success with it. And I was like, I love this. I love seeing you guys, share ideas and grow and collaborate, and it's amazing. So I love seeing that. And of course, a lot of that happens at trade shows because there's so many of you guys, all together. So definitely a valuable resource. And then Allison, I know you've got, I'm sure have lots to share as well. How do you stay inspired? Any other resources that we haven't talked about that people might want to tap into?
Well, Carol covered a lot of them. I did actually use SCORE when I started my business. It's a great resource. Where we are, it's actually retired more accountants and CPAs. So that's really beneficial, and it's free. I travel a lot. I always try to add on to when I'm going to a trade show, to make sure that I do see stores that I read about either in your magazine or have, see online that I want to go check out. I try to, follow as many stores as I possibly can online to see what they're doing, both in the social media realm, but also kind of to see what they're selling. Did I miss something? The trade shows are such a valuable resource. Also, talking to management at trade shows in the same way that you can talk to the management of wholesalers. It's also nice when you see them walking around. I know that the Dallas market is incredible at sharing information. A lot of their staff actually works the information booths, which I just applaud them on. So, you'll see their CEO working literally the information booth right there on the second floor. And I will ask, what's the hottest new jewelry line? So I stay inspired by asking as many people as I can. I am not shy whatsoever. I love to also pick my reps' brains, like if they are out and about, like what else are you seeing out there? Where, what's successful for other people? We are in this business together. We need to hold hands a little bit more and help each other through it. But I still use Pinterest company wide. We use it to share secret boards for upcoming ideas and themes for seasons that we have. But I also like to use it just to kind of see what's trending as well. So yeah, that's just a few of mine. So
I love it. Well, thank you guys so much for participating.